This afternoon's tactical enhancement is from the very carefully market segmented Asian aisle of the local supermarket. This afternoon we're playing Victory at Sea, and we have Destroy versus Last Stand, which, if you know how the point system works, is a pretty nasty matchup where the Japanese doing Destroy have got plus 10% points, so we're on 2200. But to win, I've got to kill or destroy or cripple every opposing ship, plus get more victory points. The Italians have minus 10 points, but in order to win, they still have to get more victory points, but they only have to sink one Japanese ship. The ship configurations we'll talk through a little bit. We did roll for reconnaissance, and yeah, so I had 13 dice, Emilio had 8, and yet he managed to roll higher by 1, and then we changed his fleet a little bit, and he got an extra couple of dice, and he rolled even more bloody 5s. He rolled more 5s.
Yeah, no, I rolled another 2 5s.
Yeah, I think you got what, about...
It was 50% chance. I got
6 5s out of 10 dice. That's quite impressive. Let's hope he doesn't do that again. So the Japanese fleet has Zyukaku, with a bunch of Fubukis escorting her to provide smoke and concealment and well, whatever else we need. I paid for some extra flights, so we got 6 airborne to screen against the Italian bombers, who will no doubt be pretty keen to destroy the Kageros and the Mogamis. And as the left hook, we have the Yamato. I don't get to field this very often. It'll be fun to see how it goes. And on the Italian side, we have...
So these are the flagship battleships. These are the Laturo class battleships, and they're identical, 550 points each. Next to it, we've got it's just a light destroyer, which is Navigatori class destroyer. And there's another 2, so 3 altogether of those destroyers. We then have our cruisers, and the smaller cruiser, it actually looks like it's bigger, but it's the smaller cruiser, is the Zara. This is the Zara class cruiser. Sorry, that one there's the Zara class cruiser. And this one's the Luigi Cardona class light cruiser, 75 points, 150 points. The other way around, I'm confusing things. The bigger one is the 150 points. Yep. But the smaller one, which is the lighter one, has got twin-linked fast-tracking guns, which could make a difference in this game with destroyers. I've got a complement of 50% fighters, 50% bombers, and I paid extra to get 10 of my flights up at the beginning of the game, because I could see the threat that Chris poses with all his fighters for air superiority. And then I've got my cruiser, my aircraft carrier at the end there, and I've upgraded it to 16 flights for the game. So that's the Aquila class defence carrier.
Yes. Now, Emilio did have a different list, but because he's down by so many points compared to me, I realised that with his battleship heavy fleet, because he had an old-fashioned battleship in there as well, he was going to be able to hit virtually nothing, particularly because I'm going to be flying about with so much smoke, until I was so close that I'll be dumping long lances en masse, and it would pretty much just make for a very unbalanced game. So we talked through our options, and Emilio reconfigured his list. In the process, got an extra 2 recce dice. But it does mean that he got 2 more destroyers and a cruiser, and more flights in the air at the expense of an old battleship that frankly wasn't going to survive the day.
So it was going to be battleship heavy hitting, but there was going to be so much smoke on the table, I figured the guns are going to be ineffective for a very long time, whereas my objective is to take out and sink at least one of his ships. The bulk of his ships are destroyers, they're fast moving, so I need something that can counteract those fast moving destroyers, and that's why I've upped it with my cruiser, upped it with some of my own destroyers, they're fast moving, and also I now am outgunning you in the air.
That's right. Now, just a quick note on the terrain, where we're using the Pacific Atoll terrain for the first time. the bases block movement to ships and torpedoes. The only thing that blocks line of sight for ranged gunnery is, normal gunnery, not torpedoes.
Tree line.
Is the actual tree line.
Tree line.
Ignore the sandbars. I don't think anyone was ever prevented from shooting over the top of a sandbar.
And just make a point, Chris, that particular island is a physical block, but there's not much of a tree line, so you can see a lot through there. Whereas this particular island, there's a complete block all the way around. So you put a ship on that side and a ship on this side, they can't see each other. So it could make a big difference later in the game if we're down that end of the table.
Yeah, so I suspect we won't be down that end of the table, and you set up all your cards out of harm's way, which I think is going to... The 2/3 of the table over here is going to see the lion's share of the action, I suspect. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, Emilio gets a +1 to initiative. We'll roll for initiative now. He's overcompensating with some very big dice.
Oh!
Well, funnily enough, you can still beat it.
Here we go.
There we go.
+1, 7 to 10. Chris gets the first crack.
We will check in at the end of turn 1. Right, end of turn 1. The dialogue's deteriorating here already. So what we did is we moved the carrier fleet along here. Did not get a... No, we only got one plane up. I'll have to put that counter down in a moment. And these guys moved the clappers, and we're hiding in smoke where possible. We're using extensive use of it. He does have a lot more heavy guns than I have, even though mine are more powerful. Emilio, on the other hand, is converging his fleet generally in this direction, because Emilio originally has to sink 1, then he's just got to get more points. So concentration of force will be an issue.
Yeah.
The island's going to get in the way of me going for his battleships. So he's maneuvering very well. This disheveled mess over here is a flock of fighters, which presumably are going for these guys.
And bombers.
Yeah, it's worth noting there's Italian bombers. They don't do huge damage.
But they're tough.
But they're tough, they're hard to shoot down, and they've got +1 in a dogfight, so they're actually pretty good. And they can do enough to ruin a destroyer's day, even though they're frankly not very good against anything bigger.
Yep.
We did exchange a bit of fire, and I've ranged in a line here so I can firstly respond to whatever Emilio does, but also, so if he wants to get my ships over here, which are high value targets, he's got to go around. In the shooting, Yamato went first, dropped 7 points off of that guy.
No criticals.
No criticals, that was unfortunate. I rolled 3 6s to hit too. Whereas that fella took 2 points off, then did a critical on the secondary weapons, which added another point on the Yamato. So not a lot, but then again, it is turn 1. The shit will start hitting the fan shortly. Oh, and initiative for turn 2. Let's get that dice roll up.
Oh, God, I got +1.
That's not good.
Don't roll a 1. Oh!
Hey, it's a
we roll again.
We roll again.
9 + 1,
9.
10.
Well, you know, no amount of initiative is going to help that. We'll check in at the end of turn 2. End of turn 2. Right. Well, we continue to move along here fairly quickly, which makes it hard for them to hit my ships at all, the destroyers especially, with any long-range fires. I managed to get 2 fighters up, that which I'm going to need. Emilio got 2 out as well. We continue moving up to go around this island. Emilio moved up. He was trying to do some clever maneuvering with his destroyer here to cover his ships with smoke. Now we've got the same range bands, well, certainly for long and close range for our battleships. So I stayed out of 23, so I'm 5+ to hit. Emilio was broadside, so it's 4+ to hit. He fired his first one and whiffed. I fired the Yamato and did 5 criticals on that bad boy. They must have done 15 points of damage or something. And that thing's got all sorts of things going wrong on the damage table. He got a little bit of revenge with that fella, but not so much that I'm worried. Then he overcompensated by fire using a flurry of 6s in the dogfight over here. Now we did have a 0 lined up against each of these. As you can see, there aren't any more. Both our fighters are +2 in the dogfight, but Emilio's formed up into formation, so he gets a +1, and then just rolled a fuckload of 6s. That one was a tie, and then, we finally killed a fighter over here. This is a problem because these bombers, I'm not going to be able to catch them. Not with these guys. They're going to flock onto my destroyers, which is exactly what I was trying to prevent. So my destroyers are basically going to have to dump their torpedoes this turn because they're not going to be around a lot longer. A couple of quick things to do. Critical damage repair rolls for our ships. No, the Yamato still hasn't figured out how to fix anything. And neither's the Italian ship. Oh, that's a bit of a problem. You might need to go on damage repair orders next turn.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Definitely.
Initiative. Initiative for turn 3. 3, 1. Oh, fuck, I get... I'm going to have some fun. End of turn 3, and the damage is starting to pile up. We kept moving it very quickly with the carrier. Only got 1 flight up. Same for the Italians, although he's amassing a second wave over there, I've noticed. We moved these guys up because I was expecting the bombers to come in next turn. Because I got initiative, I was actually able to move my fighters into intercept to keep these guys busy a bit longer. I lost 3 fighters, they lost 2. This formation stuff is really working for the Italians. So I thought I'd start moving my destroyers around to start dumping torpedoes before the bombers jump on them. The first one from this lucky chap here took 21 points off that guy on the initial hit. He just rolled up a Yahtzee. 8 torpedoes went off, 3 hit, something like, oh god, I don't know, 7 criticals, I think.
It's lucky that I had a steel belt, torpedo belt too.
I didn't, not many of those criticals transferred into the 4+ criticals, but we still took 25, 27 points of damage off that thing. The second one did the same trick, only hit with 1 torpedo, and did 1 point of damage to it.
Crazy.
That was bonkers. Yamato also dumped some rounds in that fellow and gave it a little bit of hurt, and it gave it a little bit of hurt back, but that was underwhelming. More interesting news, this ship here, Emilio decided that rather than tangle with Yamato, he would try and sink this fella, because all he's got to do is sink 1 ship and then get more points with the overall damage. And it's crippled, it's hanging around on 6 points out of 30. So that's actually proved to be pretty effective. I'm sure I'll finish it off next turn. Otherwise, Emilio's been doing my trick and dropping a lot of smoke to try and conceal the cruisers from the sort of whomping they're going to get. And you can't see it very well, but the battleship here is under the smoke, so I couldn't hit it. He attempted to do all hands on deck. It didn't work. He may have to try it again next turn, because he's got the critical scores are getting up to 3 on weapons. And of course, this beast and a half does criticals on a 5+ when it rolls to damage. And that's really taken a significant toll on the Italian fleet. So Emilio is actually winning the air war with less fighters than me. I think when we rejigged the list, it probably helped with the air battle.
Definitely.
And look, Emilio is not going to get his bombers to really kill a lot of stuff soon, but by the end of the battle, that will add up.
I only wanted to take out 1 ship with those bombers, so we'll see.
You still have to get more points overall in order to get a major victory, or more points overall regardless in order to get a minor victory. So you are going to have to start sinking some of those expensive destroyers. But that's it, that's turn 3. Damage control rolls, neither of us have really fixed anything. So now we're over to initiative 3. Oh, that's not good.
I get +1.
Yes, you do. Rub it in, you bastard. Oh, look at that.
9 + 1, 10.
End of turn 4. The Italians are owning the sky, which is amazing, given that I had nothing but fighters. I did get a couple up, but that's not going to do the job. They've just completely cleared the way. So there's 2 more bombers freed up, plus the second wave. These 2 bombers had to go at this destroyer and snake eyes it. They just didn't hit. Now in the gunnery, my 2 Mogamis are now destroyed. The one that's crippled before, and the other guy was had lost 10 points, was on 20, and now he's on like -5 or something on the seafloor. In return, however, that Mogami got a pretty good hit on this ship, I think. And this destroyer dumped a lot of fire on that ship with its torpedoes. And the Yamato put more hurt on this fella. These Italian battleships, they're both crippled, whereas the Yamato's taken virtually no damage. Well, a little bit. They've both got escalation. This one's got escalation, plus it can't even repair damage anymore. So it's just going to burn down to the waterline, there's no stopping it. This one could put on orders and maybe cover itself with smoke and just start to try to repair itself. It is missing a turret or two. It's vaguely recoverable at this point. Or in fact, that's if you can do special orders on when you're crippled. You might not be able to.
No.
No, so no, he's stuffed. Both of those battleships are gonna. It's abandoned ship territory.
They're one turn away from disaster.
That's right. And one of the destroyers is crippled. The rest of your fleet's actually in pretty good nick. Whereas I have 3 destroyers with another load of long lances. 3 destroyers over here, untouched carrier. In fact, all my destroyers are remaining destroyers are untouched. We're in extremely good condition. At this point, it's only turn 4. Emilio is claiming saved by the bell. The wife wants him to go home and cook a barbecue.
So if we stopped at the end of turn 4, which is this turn, then it's a victory for the Italians, because they've sunk 2 ships and we've got the most points from damage, because technically I haven't lost any ships yet. And I've sunk, my objective was to sink a ship and get maximum points, and I've sunk a ship and I've got maximum points. Next turn though, I lose 2 battleships. That's 1,100 points to the bottom of the sea, which means although I've sunk one of the other ships, which would be a minor victory, and most points major victory, it'll turn around and it'll be a minor victory for Chris.
You know what? In the remaining 4 turns, there's no way that I can't destroy your entire fleet. I only get a lot of them.
Yep.
Because I've got massive light guns coming out of this. I can peel my destroyers away from protecting the carrier, because you just don't have the gunnery to bother it anymore. Long lances, short-range torpedoes, extreme range, and that thing just whomping out massive gunnery. And I've only got to get 2 cruisers, which don't have a lot.
And 3 destroyers.
And that's it.
And the aircraft carrier over here.
Oh God, I forgot about that bastard.
So yes, you wouldn't get it in 4 turns.
I reckon I would.
Well, let's roll initiative. If I win initiative, it's a small victory for the Italians. If you win initiative...
No.
Because if I get the first crack at you, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to load you up with my bombers, my destroyers will chase you.
Yeah, you'll get on the ship.
My cruisers will destroy... Basically, you're going to lose 1 or 2 of those little destroyers.
I think we should roll the dice and see if we get another turn.
It'll have to be a quick turn.
All right, let's roll for initiative. 2, 1.
1 plus 2. It's a tie.
Oh God.
Oh no, here we go. 10.
That's a 10. All right, well, you get the initiative. We'll play a really fast turn and we'll check in at the end of turn 5.
Alright, let's go get...
Okay, we played out turn 5, or most of it. We've run out of time. But there's a few dice that we could hock at each other to try and polish off the last 3 destroyers. We never got near that fella. That would have to be on subsequent turns. So there'd be a chase going for 3 turns to see if we could get him. But in terms of the damage, that fella, I think that one blew itself up through its accumulated escalations. Something like 66 worth of damage took him down. And let's see, one of these destroyers, no, the cruiser, one of the cruisers, the light cruiser, took out one of my destroyers. That was a bit rough. Then my destroyers had at the cruisers and just dropped the last of their long lance torpedoes and just fucked those cruisers up as they do. I think actually maybe got a destroyer, I'm not sure. Yamato put the remaining rounds down over here and finished that fellow off. He didn't have much left to work with.
My destroyers all survived.
I sworn I got one of them, but no, it's a cruiser. Yeah, I did 45 points worth of damage to a cruiser.
Yeah, you absolutely killed
that was rough. So where we stand is these guys may get polished off a destroyer. So we're packing up because we're out of time. We've got more shots that we could throw around for this turn. It probably wouldn't do enough damage to make a difference to the turn. Turn 5, and look, the Japanese are ahead on points, but we've still got 4 ships left to destroy. I've lost 2 really expensive heavy cruisers and a very expensive destroyer, so that's 660 points you actually killed, and that's just totally smashed. It's not even just crippled. Obviously I've done a bit more than that, but we'll argue indefinitely about whether I could have cleaned up the last of the ships in Emilio's fleet. But the bottom line is, look, I have to say, normally I bitch and moan about my dice. Not today. I rolled more Yahtzee than I've even seen Emilio pump out in a game, and it was absolutely horrendous for the Italian fleet.
Mainly torpedo and Yamato damage.
And the Yamato was rolling probably double the number of criticals it should have got, even when it rolls criticals on a 5-6 normally. It was pumping them out. As for my torpedoes, I had 1 or 2 average shots, 1 shit shot, but then a bunch of really, like 3 or 4 really big fucking rolls on my long lance torpedoes. Like you throw 8 torpedoes, you get like 4 hits, and then you roll a fuckload of 6s to damage. And when they roll a 6 to damage, it's just...
I think as well, they're worth 100 points each, those destroyers, and you took out 2 cruisers, and that was over 225 points. So you got your money's worth out of those.
Plus the carnage I did on your big battleships.
Yeah.
Quick thought with the Air Force. Emilio dominated the skies.
Yeah.
He got 4 bombers through. But because I bought 4 extra flights for 80 points, so I had 6 flights up, and then I threw another bunch of flights in. You've killed... see, these are the dead flights. And Emilio's not lost many planes at all. No. But what I have done is stop him from getting as many bombing runs in early
There were 2 more bombers left, and that's it.
And then you had a second...
1 bomber and 2 fighters.
Yeah. So you got a total of 2 bombing runs in.
So I could have got maybe 2 more runs, and that was it.
Yeah. So you would have got points out of them. But what happens is I slowed you down so much, I had a chance to dump my torpedoes. And that... so we've got to look at the air power again. Yeah, you smashed my fleet, my air fleet. But we've got to have a think about how do you do that in time to put your bombers into effect. And this applies if I'm fighting against Japanese and Americans.
Yeah.
Now, what have we learned?
Well, it was a good game. Points-wise, Chris had 2,200 points on the table. I had 1,800 points on the table. I definitely ruled the skies. The Italians did very well from the very beginning. And you're right, though, which is you just wanted to keep my bombers away from your ships, and you did that. And then when I finally got my bombers and my 2 runs in, I whiffed. I did minor damage. I didn't actually take anything out with those bombers.
Your dice did fuck you. You could have at least crippled one of these destroyers before it got its second rack of torpedoes out. And if the game continued, you would have had another, let's see, you've got 16 flight, you would have had another 6 bombers come in and do something to destroyers. I think, a total of 8 bombers.
I would have got there in the end, but I would need numbers of bombers to wrap around you. And probably 2 turns from now, I probably could have done that, but I would have taken out 1 more destroyer.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think you would have probably killed about 200 points worth of destroyers with them.
Yeah.
That's my best guess.
The way I see it is